Hello, and thank you for joining me for my overview of my research paper on classical literature and the contemporary classroom, finding the balance between the old and the new. When I set out to jump into this research project, my perspective coming at it is as a high school English teacher and thinking about how that balance has shifted between the days where we really built our instruction around a single book, a deep dive into a text, to now where we are really looking at more excerpts and a variety of texts and thinking about as we update our curriculum and our methods of instruction, does the classical text still have a place in the modern classroom or for the contemporary student? Thinking about what identifies or defines a text as classical literature, we're really looking for or thinking about texts that are standouts in their time, whether it be for the perspective they offered, for who the author was, and or what they represent or present from a specific culture. When we talk about critical literacy, we are really thinking about this approach and this lens to how we engage with and evaluate the world around us. There is a mindset where literacy is thought about or approached in the more traditional sense, where we are dealing with printed word. But when we are talking about new media and new literacies, we are thinking about text in a much more expansive way. This can be a song on the radio, it can be a painting, it can be a photograph, or it can be a blog, it can be an article that you're reading on a news website. So text even takes on a lot more span. And when we get into really what makes it critical literacy, we are looking with a critical eye. We are looking to evaluate. We are looking to determine. We're thinking about what does this text say about the time, the place, the people who wrote it, the audience it was written for. And so when we think about classical literature and critical literacy, we're thinking about, do these two merge together? How do we and can we intentionally address both pieces? So some of the problems, the tensions around using classical literature, they focus primarily about the content. Initially, students may write these texts off because they feel that the content based on the setting is not relevant to their lives. It also deals with, or we also think about the fact that there are definitely shifts in what we consider to be appropriate behavior, things that we are more sensitive to for how they may trigger people. And this is an area that requires great intentionality if and when we use classical literature, because some of these texts were written with the purpose of reinforcing dominant cultural values. And so we need to address that, especially when it comes to racial or gender tropes. and thinking about what has changed, why has it changed, how has it changed, and even how can we continue to further that change in a positive direction. Some of the texts that I've looked at in reviewing the research have suggested some methods where classical literature and critical literacy can be fused together in ways that do support that background knowledge that comes with reading classical literature, but also the need for critical literacy in the modern era. So here are 3 different ways. Integrating multimodal text to build background knowledge. Students are much more likely to engage with a text and sustain that engagement when they have a little bit of understanding or a wider understanding of why this was happening. And especially when we think about these books dealing with timeless issues, the example here with the Joy Luck Club, and thinking about immigration and how that affects identity and belonging. That is still a relevant text to current events. We can also have students consider how these characters might respond if they were brought to contemporary times. How would they deal with, would the challenges they faced in the text still be challenges today? How might those things be handled differently? This is where we really hit at the critical literacy aspect. Another way where we can intentionally fuse together classical literature and critical literacy is to vary our methods of assessment. Yes, the essay still has a place in the classroom, but it is not our only method of assessing students, and it is not always the way that most fully depicts our students' true understanding and the depth of their critical literacy. So in conclusion, the research that I have done, the review to this point, does suggest that there is a place still for classical literature in our classrooms. However, when we make time and space for classical literature, it needs to be done with methods that really keep in mind why this text and why for these students, and how is it being delivered and assessed with ways that foster students with critical literacy. Thank you very much.